Good morning all, Steve Perryman here. Lovely Sunday morning down here in Limpstone, Devon. Sun shining. I've been awake for about 20 minutes because I need to get this podcast done as soon as possible to get it out because it's about Father's Day. So I've had my first cup of tea. I'm ready for action. Opened up some nice cards from my children and grandchildren, and one particular present of a mug with Marshy, my daughter's dog, on it, that I can have future cups of teas. So good start to a day. It's obvious because of being Father's Day that I think it's the right time to talk about my father, Ron Perryman, and also my football father, Bill Nicholson. So hopefully there's some interest for you. So my father, Ron, married to Joyce. I'm the youngest of three boys that they had together. My dad was born in 1925. One of three children. He was the youngest of the three, like me. He had a brother and sister. Lived most of his young life in Hounslow. Actually played for a team called Hounslow Ivy Dean, which I think was quite sort of famous in the area. But he never ever talked about any sort of football prowess that he had. So good man, my dad. I had a very happy upbringing. He wasn't around so much because he was always out working, and no surprise really, in the year 2000, it was a surprise. In the year 2000, he died, so 75 years of age, with emphysema. No surprise in the fact that he worked in a mine for a short time, in a foundry, as a coal delivery man, and then ended up at Heathrow working for Air France as a baggage loader. So and to put on top of that, he smoked from the age of 14. So I hate to think the sort of state his lungs were in by the time he eventually went. Of course, sad, extra sadness for me because I ended up working in Japan, and when he died, I got a phone call in a hotel in Korea. My team was playing there. We just won a very important game in the Asian Cup Winners' Cup, away in, obviously, Korea. And my wife was telling me that my father had passed away and I needed to get home, which is absolutely right. So the team spent that night in Korea, in Seoul, and we travelled back to Nagoya the next day. And instead of then travelling on to the south of Japan, because we had a domestic fixture to fulfil, I didn't travel with the team. I travelled back to Heathrow, and Joe, who sponsored our team, knew of the circumstances of my father's death. So I was put in club class, and I'd never seen it on a plane before, but I was put in a very private part of club class, and it enabled you to give time and thinking to your father and what he meant to you in this sort of really sad time. So I do thank them for that. So good man. He didn't really have any football opinion as such. That was left to my eldest brother Ted. But what my father did was, there in my sort of development as a player, being seen as a schoolboy footballer, he arranged his work schedule at Heathrow to be able to pick me up from school and take me to schoolboy training at Tottenham, mainly Tottenham, which would have been at least a couple of times a week. So not easy from West London to North London, traffic and stuff. So my dad was always there. I think he was entertained while I'd be training. and Tottenham certainly entertained him when they would pick him up in a black limousine and take him to various games where I was playing for Middlesex and London and eventually England. So he was treated really well by Tottenham Hotspur, and again the decision was left to me. My brother thought I should go to West Ham. My father thought I should go to Spurs. That was out of some type of loyalty because they were the first club who knocked on the door and looked after him so well. Took my father and my two brothers to Berlin when I played for the England schoolboys against West Germany in the Olympic Stadium. So they did their bit. They absolutely did their bit in terms of trying to encourage me to sign there, and so my father was obviously very proud of with the three of us, three boys, and me being the youngest. He attended 10 times I played at Wembley in various cup finals and charity shields and stuff. So we didn't live too far from Wembley, and of course it was so available for him to go, and he was just very supportive. He didn't really tell me I did this right or did this wrong, which in some way is good because you don't really need that so much when you're so young. And as I said, my oldest brother took care of that side of things. So I said my father worked at Heathrow for Air France. This was great because he would travel. You got a discounted fare. I think they paid 10%, so he could travel with his work friends when we were playing in Europe in the early 70s. And I'm not suggesting he went to the difficult places like Romania, but if we played in Italy or Spain or France, wherever, then my dad made sure he was there and enjoyed the company of his friends in a sporting environment, watching his son play football. So I think in lots of ways I look back, and although I missed a lot of his life by working in Japan for a total of 7 years. That's the negative. When you work abroad, of course you earn good money, but you are not seeing your loved ones, and when my father died, with me being away from home, then it sort of underlines the fact. But I'm sure that I made him proud over the course of years, and he had lots to talk about to his friends with Spurs winning or losing, or winning a cup or losing. And so, yeah, great support, and looked after me, provided the money to help us three boys go and watch Brentford play and QPR play when we were very young, which is all part of our growing up. So it wasn't like he was over the fields with us playing football and practicing with us. He wasn't that type of dad. In fact, his brother, his eldest brother, was more of the football man of their family. So a couple of stories about my dad. We always went down to the south coast. We never travelled abroad on holidays and didn't have the money. My father only travelled abroad to follow Spurs and myself, and he was the type that would say, "Steve, if you can't spell it, don't eat it." So he wasn't a traveller. He wasn't there to sample the food, different foods and stuff. He was there to watch the game and have a beer with his mates, and hopefully have some fun in his life. So a hard worker, deserved it. So he would take us to the south coast. We had family down there. We used to use a family's house when they went away. And this one day we were sat looking out to sea, somewhere like South Sea, I assume, or Leon Solent. And it's raining, and I suppose there's nothing else to do. We're just looking out to sea at the rain. And young family, I'm the youngest. And if you look left, there's not one car along the seafront. If you look right, there's not one other car along the seafront. And as I say, we're just looking out to sea. What we're looking at, I don't know, but that's what we're doing. All of a sudden, this car drives up, parks exactly alongside us. It could have chosen anywhere to park, but it chose to park right next door to us. And the chap got out and banged his door against my father's door. Well, the roof went off. He went berserk. And you can imagine telling this chap that there's so many other miles to park. Why did you have to park next to us and bang my car door and scratch it? My dad was a bit of a car man, and he liked his cars, and he liked to look after them. So this was a day when he was upset, and I think I learnt a few new words with regard to that. So thanks, Dad, for what you did for me in my youth. Fantastic. Thank you very much. And sad time, and this is the day when I can, and both my brothers can remember him. At some point, we were allowed to help my mum and dad buy their council house at a reduced rate, and so the three of us contributed to lend them some money or give them some money. I'm sure we gave it, and then my mum and dad, being very old-fashioned, decided that they would put the money that they would have been paying normally in rent, they would put it in an account for us as by way of saying thank you back to us. And I remember my brothers saying to my mum, we don't want that money. We don't need it. We don't want it. Yeah, well, you deserve it. We'd be paying this in rent anyway. Very old-fashioned sort of attitude to it. They didn't want anything given to them. Anyway, so my brothers made the point to my mother, if Dad wants steak, buy him steak out of this money. If he wants shrimps, prawns, buy him. And buy him a particular favourite of my dad was he didn't want cheap ham. He only wanted the best ham. And sometimes when my mother made out that it was the best ham and she couldn't afford to buy it, then we were all waiting for my dad's reaction when he tasted the first bite of this ham sandwich, and would immediately know and sort of spit it out with accompanying words that he had realised that my mother had tried to sort of trick him with this so-called dodgy ham in his eyes. So happy childhood, helped by of course my mother as well, but this is Father's Day, so particularly my dad. And then on to Bill Nicholson. This sounds a bit sort of sugary and not quite right as a football father. It's not a term that I've used often, and you certainly don't when I'm playing at getting in the team at 17 and working with Bill for 7 or 8 years. I'd never looked at him as any type of father. He was just my manager. But later on in your years, when you grow up and you finish playing and you're coaching and managing, and particularly when I was abroad and you're passing messages on to the players under your sort of stewardship, you realise that a lot of what you're doing, a lot of what you're saying, a lot of your thoughts have been influenced by this wonderful man, Bill Nicholson, the manager of Tottenham, who signed me as a schoolboy, who turned me professional, who made me vice captain, which led on to me being a captain under other managers. So you realise that this football integrity that I've spoken about before was all generated from my young age. And at that young age, this is your manager. You don't realise that he's a special manager, although of course you know about the great things he's done and the trophies he's won and the teams he's created. But you think if you'd have joined another club, there would have been another manager telling you the same things. Well, guess what? I don't think they did or would have done. And that's why I'm very grateful to Bill Nicholson. And in, the last 10, 15 years of my life, I have thought about him as my football father, and therefore I'm looking up to the sky and saying thank you, Bill, for what you gave me in terms of teaching and etiquette and, as I say, football integrity. To prove it, I want to just read a piece that he put in the newspaper when I'd played about 7 or 8 games in the first team, 17 years of age. And this article was in one of the I think it was the Daily Mail, or maybe Sunday Mail, and written by Bill Nicholson. He dictated everything about this article, and this article is not for me to tell you how good a player I was. This is for me to let you know how he thought about things. And it's in my book, so if you haven't got time to listen now, and you've got the book, then it's on page 100. And there's a picture of me keeping the ball up as a young 17-year-old. So I'll read it out quickly for you. Spurs Mr. Reliable is just 17 by Bill Nicholson. Very unusual for it to be actually by the manager. It's normally by a reporter that's talking to the particular person, in this case Bill Nicholson. Spurs Mr. Reliable is just 17 by Bill Nicholson. Steve Perryman is 17. I decided to make him a first division player when Spurs were hardly threatening to be the best team in the country. They're still not, but Perryman remains in the side. The reason for this is simple enough. He is establishing himself as a first team player. He has yet to dig out a path of personal glory for himself. He hasn't captured the public imagination with any special brilliance. You couldn't say he was going to be another George Best or anyone nearly as spectacular in style. He is, at this early stage of his development, a reliable player. I stress the word reliable because this is vital in any youngster's makeup. I've got a far more colourful player still waiting to get into the first division. With a sway of either shoulder, he can send 2 defenders the wrong way and take the ball between them. But as yet, he isn't ready. Perryman is. Perryman, who comes from Ealing, is completely unspoiled, and we are hoping he will stay that way. He is a steadying influence for us. He has got a certain efficiency, enough skill in my opinion, and is basically accurate in what he does. He has control and intelligence not to try ridiculously risky passes. He prefers the simple way. He paces his passes, he times them. This is so important in the act of distribution. He anticipates the game. As some would put it, he reads it. As a link man, he moves up in anticipation. He moves back after perceiving the situation. In this respect, he helps to make up for a certain lack of speed in his running. He is like Danny Blanchflower in this way. He's always ready. He starts to move before the other man, the opponent, and usually reaches his destination first because of his anticipation. I'm not saying that Perryman is another Blanchflower. He hasn't got the imagination of Danny, who was a master of the unexpected. Blanchflower used to conceal his intended passes, but Perryman is doing this to a certain extent. After all, he is only 17, and a serious comparison is unfair to him. It's all that he can be likened to Danny in some aspects of the game. Perryman is a good trainer. He enjoys work. In fact, his appetite for football is difficult to satisfy. Some have already predicted that he will be in the full England side in 5 years. I am not inclined to make such forecasts about beginners. I'm sure that he will become a consistently good clubman if he hasn't already. You see, as I said, he is so reliable. For you Spurs people, that absolutely weighs Bill Nicholson up. He's given me praise. in relation to where I am at that particular stage. A young player, 17 years of age, in Spurs first team. He's not hoping, like most young players under his wing. He didn't want anyone to get above themselves. The player that he mentioned, the more colourful player, was Graham Souness, who was a totally different player to the one that you end up knowing when you think about Graham. Wonderful player that he was and is. So Graham was a year younger than me, and in Bill Nicholson's words, I was ready, he wasn't. In fact, Bill, I gave something to the team in terms of energy and work rate that Graham at that stage was not able to give. He could give ability and touch and flair and all these fantastic qualities that I sort of wish I had, but at the point when I entered the team, that's what I was there to do. So thank you to you both. Both sort of favourite people of mine. Of course, my father is my father, and Bill Nicholson helped me a great deal as a young footballer, kept my feet on the ground, and I'm eternally grateful to both of you for what you gave me. Have a great Father's Day, all you fathers out there. Enjoy your day. I expect some of you, like me, will have the chance to see your grandchildren today with this lockdown being relieved somewhat. But keep safe. Don't take chances. Enjoy the fact that these youngsters are in front of you, and lead them in the way, please, that I was led by my father and my football father. Hope you enjoyed listening, and speak to you soon. Bye-bye.